Quran and science. What does Quran say about science?
Science is just another name of understanding the a human attempt to understand what universe looks like and how it behaves like, so that we can adjust to it. That's science, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to adjust to the behavior of the universe. Now, if you do not know the geometry of the universe, how are you going to behave it accordingly? Quran actually explains the literal geometry of the whole seven heavens. Okay,
Wow.
science only tries to explain as best it, uh, and most of it is just a calculated conjecture of the cosmic background and the first heaven. They don't call it the first heaven; they call it the entirety of the whole universe. So, okay, here's the thing: if you do not know where you are in, what's the make of this whole universe is, then you're not going to be able to do much about this.
Mm.
Every single progress that any human being has made has come from the basic concept of understanding the makeup of this whole the world that we're in. It's not just understanding who I am, but where I am and how it all behaves around me. Hence the laws of physics and understanding cosmology and astronomy.
Mm.
And that changes everything, literally everything. If we have a different definition of the universe, we're a different species altogether. And this is what Muslims are not understanding right now. We cannot bow down to an attempt which is going to be refuted in less than 10 years from science.
Mm.
And it's okay. They're not claiming that this is what it is. They're saying this is what it is till now. We're going to discover more and then we'll formulate some other hypothesis. So the Quran is not going to follow a human being's intellect. Quran is going to set it. Quran is going to be oblivious to it, literally.
Mm.
Okay. Quran is the intellect of the maker of the universe. Okay. Of course, a book from the intellect of the maker of the universe.
So the Quran mentions the sky a lot. So Surah Mulk, Surah Tariq, it goes to reference again and again
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's up.
Yeah.
So what does this sort of tell us as Muslims?
Well, it most two things. It's a very good question. First of all, it shows a human being of how infinite his imagination should be.
Mm.
Okay, and that changes everything. Okay, that actually raises the bar. It actually widens the actual horizon of how we should actually present our own selves to each other. Okay, to the universe. Now, I'm using the expression of philosophy a lot, but understand what I'm trying to get at. Let me give you an example. We would not have invented the airplane if we did not know how the atmosphere works. Okay?
Yeah.
We would not have actually, and this is the most basic example. Now, keep that in mind while I say this next statement. We would not have been as moral as we are or can be if we do not understand how this universe works around us. Okay? So it's not just about the morality. I just purposely picked that out so that you can understand this is how 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 important it is. And from morality to expansion of our horizon of progress, of how we can actually reach towards bigger and you know wider uh, goals of sustaining ourselves as a species, understanding the value of knowledge becomes way more pivotal. For example, if we did not understand this concept of physics,
Mm.
and we didn't for so long, we were just using so much, we didn't really open the minds towards understanding how this planet behaves.
Mm.
We would not have invented a diaper. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. This is how simple I'm going to tell you things are. Now, once we understand how this whole structure of the universe behaves, it actually sets the horizon, the scope of human beings, the whole community, the mind of the whole species. And to strengthen the mind of the whole species, we need to understand the actual truth around the whole geometry and the symmetry and the makeup of little and big things around You know, the whole planets and, you know, galaxies and everything. Now, if there is a certain model of progress which says that, you know, this is it, whatever you see is what you see, and if you can go there, good enough. 1,000 years ago, people did not, or 2,000 years, maybe a little, you know, time. The Tao philosophy at that time did not really realize, you know, what these constellations represent. They used them to maneuver around paths on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, just merely for directions.
Sort of one question I have.
Before, no, don't, because I'm not even, because everyone's gonna get confused as to why I was telling you all of this.
Yeah.
A man from 3,000 years ago, when he looked at the skies, okay, he couldn't comprehend, since he couldn't comprehend the entirety and the scope of how grand all of the schema is, he couldn't put anything to use in this planet for himself and other people. Now that we know what Jupiter looks like and how big it is, how sun works and how big it is, or where it is and how it behaves and, you know, moves, and then Andromeda and other galaxies and trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies, so now we behave differently on this planet, not just between, you know, two human beings. I'm talking about as a human being. Now we're trying to actually go to Mars or wherever we can. That actually gives us a lot more energy and power to invent more stuff, to go faster than light, presume, you know, in our advent to you know, chase bigger goals. So as a civilization, the concept of universe is pivotal. As a civilization, we need to understand what all of this actually is.
And the Quran encourages this.
Quran actually enforces it. Okay?
Really?
It enforces you to look up and think. Okay? It enforces it. Every book Allah has ever written is all about the geometry of the universe. Okay? Human beings needed a guiding light to translate all of that because we can't really feel it. We can just see it. And we're so minuscule that we can't really comprehend how big all of this is. Okay? And as soon as we start to do that, all of a sudden our definitions and goals and you know, our definitions of reach changes. Okay? Not just the reach, but understanding what reach should be. And that actually changes the scope of how a human mind behaves. Okay? I mean, I can't even do the math on the difference between a mind of a physicist and a layman behaving towards, you know, the bigger objectives of the species. Okay? So this is as basic as I'm going to make it, but since we're so far away from it, most people are not even going to understand, let alone put it to use of whatever I'm saying right now. So it's a big difference between the intellect and the behavior of a human being who actually understands all of this versus a guy who really, you know, thinks these are just lights, dimming lights, you know. Which,
So if this is so apparent in the Quran, we've been given this book for 1400 years. Why have Muslims not sort of taken this as
they
a
had.
serious?
All of astronomy was invented by Muslims.
Really?
Yeah, well, not invented, because that's the wrong word, discovered. But the first generation after the Sahabas, the Tabe'ins, they actually used the energy from the Quran to actually, you know, ponder, formulate, translate, understand, comprehend whatever's going on. This is not a luxury. See, most people think this is a luxury because it's got nothing to do with the way we're living in this planet. It is literally dependent on how you look at the universe, okay, of how you're going to behave on this planet as a single human being. It is this is way more important to understand how the universe behaves, the physics of it. It is way more important because the definitions of your own self changes once you understand it. You know what? This is, not, we're not living in water, we're living in air. It changes the way we're going to actually take the next step because it's going to be air dependent. Okay, if we're living in water, we would have had a totally different lifestyle, different definitions of progress, different definitions of literally intellect. Now that we understand this is air, we've broken it up and see, what kind of nitrogen, how much oxygen, Okay? We've literally progressed because of the way we perceive things. Okay, and I'm talking to kids, so that's why I'm using this kind of terminology and phrase. So understand how important all of this is. If you do not understand the importance of it, you're not going to chase you're not going to have that surge of going towards the reality of it. You need to understand how important it is. That's the one thing that's taken away from Muslims. The sensitivity of understanding the truth is more important than the truth itself. Okay? Understanding the sensitivity of it. Because this is the only energy to sustain it through generations and generations. Even if I do understand the truth right now, I will not be able to sustain it in the next 3-4 generations. But if I understand the sensitivity of understanding the truth, I'm going to have 100 generations surging towards the truth, and they're going to find their own truth their own way. But if they do not know why it's so important, they're not going to pay heed to it.